So hello, welcome to Chem 211, which is Quantitative Chemistry. So we are now on first semester 2020 and 2020-2021, no? So it feels like 2019 kasi parang ang slow ng progress ngayong 2020. So sorry for the typo here. So let me just give you an idea about this platform. So this is a pre-recording lecture. I'm using Loom. So here in Loom, you can fast forward the pacing, no? So pwede nyo i-adjust, hanapin nyo na lang dyan sa may baba. Pwede nyo i-adjust yung kung gaano kabilis ako magsalita, kung nababagalan kayo, or kung gusto nyo namang bagalan yung the way I talk. So, pwede rin. And also, you can always pause the video if you have something to do or na-overwhelm kayo with information. And you can always go back dito sa link na to kasi I will be uploading this video sa ating Google Classroom din. So without further ado, so this is Module 1. We'll be discussing more on the introduction to quantitative chemistry. So I am your instructor. We all know each other. I am JSSerrano. You can call me Ma'am Jazz. And this semester, I am handling 2A and 2C. So only two sections for Chem 211, and the other instructor is Sir Jetro Sanchez, which is he's a new instructor here, and he is handling 2B and Nagcarlan Satellite Campus second year students din. So ito ipapakita ko lang quickly no yung aking schedule. So this is my schedule. And for 2C, we have a Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And for the lab ng 2C, 7 to 10 a.m. For section 2A, yung yellow natin, which is Thursday, Friday, 10 to 12. And then we have 4 to 5 p.m. However, ayun nga, again, I'm very flexible when it comes to our time kasi hindi ko naman talaga kayo nire-require to have online class or attend a lecture class kasi my consultation hours are open from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday. So if you have any questions regarding our module or just anything in general about the subject, you can always message me and I'll try to respond as soon as I read your email or your message. So let's start, no? I'm sure you're excited kung anong meron. Hopefully, we don't get confused kasi I'm also handling your general biochemistry, no? So, sana hindi tayo malito sa isa't isa when it comes to requirements and then yung mga submission dates, etc. So, adjust ko lang yung screen. Okay, so our objectives at the end of the lesson in this module, the students should be able to first define quantitative chemistry as a branch of chemistry or branch of science. Two, differentiate qualitative and quantitative chemistry. Three, enumerate the steps in chemical analysis. Four, explain each step in chemical analysis. 5. Identify SI units in chemical measurement. 6. Give real-life uses of the chemical measurements. 7. Review basic chemistry concepts. And lastly, compute for relative atomic mass and relative formula mass. So, what I would do is write this down, all of the objectives, and then as we go along, as I go along the lecture, you can answer these questions. Or my strategy is back in college, I would write the objectives down. So kung hindi ko makuha in one take habang nagle-lecture yung instructor namin, gagawin ko siya after and then I'll practice answering all these 8 questions. In our case, meron tayong 8 objectives. And then I will answer it on my own without looking at the notes. So in that way, I know na naintindihan ko yung lesson and na-comprehend ko siya, no? So let's start with defining what is analytical chemistry. So analytical chemistry, ito yung broader range ng qualitative and quantitative. So, ibig sabihin, under analytical chemistry, we have two branches of chemistry, which is qualitative and quantitative chemistry. So, analytical chemistry is the science of obtaining, processing, and communicating information about the composition and structure of matter. So, also known as determining what matter and how much of it exists. So, last semester, we focused mainly on the qualitative side, no? And this semester, we'll be focusing on quantitative chemistry. So let's define first what is qualitative chemistry. So alam ko naman na you are familiar with this PowerPoint presentation kasi this is what I used then last semester. No? So let's define qualitative. If you remember, it is a branch of chemistry that deals with identification of elements or grouping of elements present in a sample. So dito sa qualitative, we talked about or yung mga topics natin dito before was defining kung ano yung mga physical and chemical properties, and then ano ba yung mga homogeneous mixtures, heterogeneous mixtures, solutions, etc. And basically dito, when you're identifying elements or components of a sample, you're using your five senses, no? Okay, so now quantitative chemistry, what we will be talking about this semester is the branch of chemistry that deals with the determination of the amount or percentage of one or more constituents of a sample. So again, yung naka-bold letters natin here is determining the amount. So this semester, please expect that we'll be focusing more on numbers. So marami ring computations. So you're not just adding and then multiplying, dividing, but you're using all the qualitative properties and then converting it into something that could be measured, no? Something that is more specific. So, to summarize, qualitative analysis tells us what is in the sample. So, it answers ano yung nasa sample. While quantitative analysis used to tell how much is in the sample. So, ilan. So, dito mas specific na, just what I said. So now let's start with the core on how scientists do their quantitative analysis. So it starts with a simple process, which is what they call chemical analysis. So you as a food technologist, you should be very much aware of this kasi nga dito um, meron tayong iba't ibang steps, no? You have to start from the bottom para lang hagdan, no? Meron yang you can't skip a step kasi if you do, you'll trip over or no mahuhulog ka kasi you're not following what's the right path. So, in my general example, so this is, as you can see in the picture, this is two girls who are jogging, so doing their workout. So, ito yung gagawin kong example since lahat tayo ngayong pandemic are into fitness, napansin ko lang, into fitness, into biking, jogging, or any form of exercise, no? And I hope you don't forget your fitness kasi nga it helps you maintain your immune system. Kailangan mas mag-focus tayo ngayon with our health. And ayun, just giving importance to your health. Especially na meron tayong hinaharap na pandemic ngayon. So, eto nga, no? So, just to share, ako personally, pag nagja-jogging ako or nagbabike, I would always have a little snack on my bag. Like, for example here, candy. O kaya nagmamilo ako sa umaga or I eat a fruit or kung merong coffee, magko-coffee ako. Pero, ayun. So, more on candy talaga yung binabaon ko. Kasi sabi nga nila para hindi ka daw mahilo, etc. So, Bakit kaya, no? So there's this chemical substance called theobromine. So from the Greek word food of the gods, it's a diuretic, smooth muscle relaxant. So ibig sabihin nire-relax niya yung muscle mo. Parang 'di ba pag kumain ka ng chocolate, parang meron kang feel good na nararamdaman. Parang it releases stress. And then, at the same time, aside from being a smooth muscle relaxant, it's also a cardiac stimulant and vasodilator. So, ibig sabihin parang somehow pinapataas niya yung heart rate mo. No? So, this converts into caffeine, which is a central nervous system stimulant. So, here, kung mapapansin niyo yung structure niya, so, dito walang attachment, no? Dito nagkaroon siya ng methyl group, which is CH3. So, naging caffeine siya. Almost similar, but dahil nagkaroon siya ng ganon, from theobromine, naging caffeine siya. So, si Professor Tom Wenzel from Bates College in Maine, he was really curious, no? Lahat naman halos feeling ko ng scientist are starts with a question. Everything starts with curiosity. No? So for example here, sabi niya, how much caffeine is in a chocolate bar? Or how does that amount compare with the quantity in coffee or soft drinks? So in a steps in chemical analysis, I'll be using the example of chocolate in terms of caffeine sa analysis natin. So first, so again, you can pause this video and then write it down. First is formulating the question. Second step is selecting analytical procedures. Third, sampling. Fourth step is sampling preparation. 5, analysis. 6, reporting and interpretation. And last step is drawing conclusions. So let's start with the first step, formulating the question. So dito sa first step, sabi dito, you have to translate the general questions into specific questions to be answered through chemical measurements. So, ito, no? Please take note of chemical measurements. Ibig sabihin, usually, ang mga tanong dito, for example, is how much? How much caffeine is in the chocolate? So, if you start with a general question such that, ang general nating question, for example, sa ating slides is, what is in the chocolate that makes it a vasodilator or a smooth muscle relaxant. So, ang sagot doon is we have the caffeine nga, 'di ba? So that's qualitative chemistry. Now, moving on with something that is more measurable, we ask how much caffeine is in the chocolate that makes it a vasodilator or a stress relief, no? Okay, so step 2, we have to select analytical procedures. This time, we have to search for literatures to find appropriate procedures or, if necessary, devise new procedures to make the required measurements. So, for example, this is from a reading, a literature about chocolate. So the procedure that you're going to do is high pressure liquid chromatographic determination of theobromine and caffeine in cocoa and chocolate products. So in analytical procedures, you have to understand that the literatures that you need to search for are reliable. You have to make sure na hindi lang siya basta Wikipedia, no? Or hindi lang siya basta nakita mo sa internet. So, we all know na nandyan ang internet. However, not all sources are reliable. Okay, so step 3, which is sampling. Sampling of selecting. It's a selecting process ng representative material to analyze. So now, after you ask the question, how much caffeine there is, next is you find the procedure, the appropriate procedure. So, gagamit ako ng high pressure liquid chromatographic determination, etc. And now, you have to find the sample. So, dito, sabi naman, before we move on, sabi, poor samples leads to meaningless results. So, ibig sabihin, pag pangit yung sample mo, in the first place, hindi mo ginamit yung qualitative characteristic na hinahanap sa study, then, baliwala lahat ng effort mo, right? So, for example, in sampling, sabi, key point, mastery in sampling relies in the analyst's ability to distinguish the sample's qualitative characteristics. So, that's why our qualitative chemistry is very important last semester. So, I know na somehow you have experienced a bit of being a food technologist such that you are determining the pH of our Anika products. So, ito yung mga pictures nyo, no? So, yun yung mga classmates nyo kung namimiss nyo sila. And if you namimiss nyo yung lab, so we just have to pray na mawala na yung COVID or magkaroon na ng vaccine for COVID para tuloy-tuloy na magkita-kita na tayong lahat. Okay, so sampling, what else? So I just want to show you dito na important na malaman natin yung qualitative characteristics, right? So yeah. Okay, so before we move on, so sample na, di ba? Dito sa sampling, hanap ka, for example, chocolate yung gusto natin. So yung chocolate ba na halimbawa may nuts, kasamang nuts? O pwede ba siyang dark chocolate? We have white chocolate, meron pang matcha chocolate, and other types of chocolate. No? So you have to determine anong sample ba yung gagamitin ko, kailangan ba standard siya, etc. Okay, so next is step 4, which is sample preparation. So this time, it's the process of converting a representative sample into a form that is more suitable for analysis, which usually means dissolving a sample. So for example natin, yung chocolate bar. So yung sample preparation includes removing fat and dissolving desired analytes. So yung fat daw dun sa chocolate bar natin, it is removed because it would interfere with chromatography. So again, babalik at babalik kayo sa step 1 and step 2, which is ano ba yung methodology mo, 'di ba? So bakit mo tatanggalin yung fat? And what else? Sa chocolate bar mo ba, kailangan lahat ng to is dissolved in a liquid form or in solid form? So next, step 5 is analysis. So this time, it's the measuring the concentration of analyte in several identical portions. It also means that you have replicate measurements or repeated measurements to assess variability or uncertainty and guard against gross errors. So sa analysis, ito na yung time na okay, meron na kayo ng samples. This time, kailangan ma-measure nyo na kung ano yung concentration nun. And to be able to measure it, kailangan meron kayong iba't iba na identical portions. Okay, step 5, pa rin tayo yung analysis natin. Using different analytical methods on similar samples will help us know that results are unbiased, meaning all methods give same results. So for example, meron tayong ginamit na method dito, which is method 1, and then on the other hand, meron din tayong method 2. So if you're only determining same substance, kailangan daw hindi magiging biased yung results niya. It means na kailangan parehas din yung magiging result. Okay? So step 6 is very important. So ito na yung time na you need to do the reporting and interpretation. So, kaya, di ba, kung napansin nyo, from the past semesters, if I'm handling your subject, I have a lot of worksheets. Ang dami kong worksheets na binibigay sa inyo. And then, when we had the experiment, I had to ask you to, for example, okay, i-describe nyo nga yung color nitong substance na to, yung sample A, sample B, what's the difference between the two? Kaya ang daming minus, 'di ba? Pag halimbawa walang kulay. So bakit hindi naman 'yun na-observe mo, 'di ba? So when you're doing reporting, you have to remember these three C's. First C, it has to be clear. Next, it has to be concise. And then, of course, kailangan complete yung report of your results. So you're not just doing the experiment for fun, and baliwala lahat ng results mo if you're not going to write it down and if you're not going to be specific. So, in step number 6, kailangan medyo ano ka dito, yung may pagka-OC ka, no? Kailangan may pagka-perfectionist ka kasi every detail, you have even the smallest detail, you have to write it down. And of course, you have to interpret it. Ano bang ibig sabihin kung naging ganitong color from blue naging yellow yung aking sample A? Bakit kaya, no? So you have to interpret that. And then of course kasama din sa step number 6 is that you have to highlight the limitations. Ano ba yung limitations, for example dito is yung environment mo. So, dun sa una, day 1, ang init ng panahon. So, yung environment mo, hindi constant. And then day 2, biglang malamig yung environment mo. Nung mineasure mo yung room temperature, nag-iba siya. Bumaba yung degree Celsius mo. So, you have to take notes of those limitations para at least for someone who would reproduce it, malalaman nila. So, dapat pala yung environment ko constant lang. So, yun. So, reporting and interpretation, kasama rin dito, you have to use tables, charts, diagrams, and other illustrations with proper labels and explanation. So, alam naman natin lahat, for example, sa table, pag magbibigay ka ng table, you have to put the table number and then yung ating title of the table, and then you have the result here. So, ito yung isang example ng isang graph. So, dito naman sa graph, you have to put, syempre, meron tayong X and Y axis. Ito yung sa X, ito yung sa Y axis. So, dito, you have to put the title on the side, kung ito ba ay independent or dependent variable. And then, sa ibaba, I forgot to put here, yung kung anong figure number siya. No? And then, under that, you have to interpret ano bang nasa table. Kasi hindi mo naman pwedeng ipakita lang yung table as is and then wala kang explanation. So, ano yun, di ba? So, etong mga steps na to, no, I'm not just emphasizing this for the sake na matapos yung module, but for you to understand and appreciate this kasi by next year, you will be third year students na, and then by fourth year nyo, you have to make a lot of reports. Ang dami yung gagawing, let's just say may thesis kayo, part to ng pagiging thesis nyo, di ba? Kaya hindi pwede lang yung paputso-putso na copy-paste kayo and you have no idea what you are doing. So, ang hirap naman ng ganun na you always rely on your classmates, di ba? You have to rely on yourself then and learn to grow by yourself. Okay, so last step is drawing conclusion. So now, once the report is written, the analyst may declare what is involved with the information. So it could be suggestion or recommendation. So when we say drawing conclusion, so meron ako ditong 4 picks 1 word. So I'll give you time. So bigyan ko kayo siguro mga 5 seconds for you to identify each picture. Okay, so ano kaya yung word natin dito? So we have picture 1 here. And then we have picture number 2. Picture 3. And picture 4. Okay, so here, ang sinasabi, ang word natin dito based on what I've read. Next picture is based on what I've understand or what I think or know. And then we have here based on concrete results or evidences. The last picture, I therefore conclude. So yung word natin for this, for picks one word is conclusion. Okay? So, ang conclusion, ibig sabihin lang yan, you have to combine everything na nabasa nyo, lahat ng tingin nyo, reliable sources, everything that I've read, and lahat ng naintindihan nyo, lahat ng pumasok sa isip nyo, what you think or what you know or what you understand. And of course, you have to support it with concrete results or evidences, just like in the third picture. Kasi without the evidences, hindi nyo pwedeng i-justify. No? Kailangan lagi kayong merong justification. So as a scientist, as a food technologist, you're not only being scientific, but also kailangan para kayong mga lawyer, no, na kailangan meron kayong pruweba, meron kayong evidence. So I therefore conclude. So yun yung conclusion. That is your last step. So hopefully clear yung ating 7 steps. So again, let's review kung ano yung 7 steps. Okay, sorry. So first step, formulating the question. So dito you have to be specific with the question. Ano ba yung i-identify mo na na experiment. And then second is selecting analytical procedures. So dito parang methodology, no? So ano ba yung gagawin kong method para ma-analyze yung number 1? And then third is you need to have samples, sampling natin, you have to determine. And then next is for sampling preparation. So dito, you need to have identical samples and reproducible. And then 5 is what you do in the analysis. So step number 5 is important kasi dito niya na madadetermine kung ano ba talaga yung sasagot siya dun sa question number 1. And then number 6 is reporting and interpretation. So again, sa reporting and interpretation, you have to be obsessive compulsive. You have to be perfectionist kasi kailangan even the little details, you have to put it in there. And then lastly, you have to draw conclusions. Ibig sabihin, everything that you've read, everything that you think or you understand, and everything has to be based on an evidence or your results. And then you can put there lahat ng recommendations nyo, lahat ng suggestions nyo. So that is chemical analysis. Okay? So next, we talk about chemical measurements. Okay, excuse me. So when we talk about chemical measurements, we're simply looking into SI units. So pag sinabi kong SI units, this is the international standard, no? So bakit tayo nagkakaroon ng SI units? So it is used by scientists around the world. And when we say international units nga, ibig sabihin, when you're interpreting the results or when you're reporting and interpreting them, kailangan kahit sino around the world should understand. Kaya tayo merong SI units, no? Para mas maintindihan nila and also they could reproduce it with your consent. So, yan. So, ano ba yung mga SI units natin? We have standards ng length. We have mass, time, temperature, amount of substance, and electric current. So, isa-isahin natin to, no? So, we have fundamental units. I have a table here. So, unahin natin yung length. So, ang unit ng length for SI is meter. So, ito yung M. So sabi dito yung definition niya is 1 meter is the distance light travels in a vacuum during a second. So actually yung definition naman, you don't have to know or you don't have to memorize this. Ang mahalaga lang dito is alam nyo kung ano yung unit of measurement pag hinahanap yung length sa SI. Okay, next is when we talk about mass, kilogram yung ating unit of symbol. Okay? And then for time, ang unit symbol natin is seconds or sec. And then for electric current, ang unit of measurement niya is amperes. And then temperature, ang unit of symbol niya is Kelvin. So hindi Celsius, no? Magkaiba yung dalawa. So here Kelvin is K. And then number 6 is luminous intensity. So ito yung sa ilaw, no? Candela is a measure of luminous intensity visible to human eye. So pag luminous intensity, candela or CD. Okay. Next, we have amount of substance. So here, magpo-focus tayo dyan in our later discussions, modules. Marami kayong ma-identify, yung mole. So sabi rin dyan, 1 mole is the number of particles equal to the number of atoms in exactly 0.012 kilograms of carbon number 12, which is approximately 6.022 times 10 raised to the 23rd power. So pag narinig nyo yung 6.02 times 10 raised to the 23rd power, it's the Avogadro's constant, no? Yung kaya last semester, tama ba? Last year, we conducted the mole day. Yung may mga students ako na noong October 23, so 10 raised to 23, nagkaroon kami ng counting celebration, no? Counting kainan, etc. So just to celebrate Avogadro. Okay, so what else you need to know with SI? So dito meron din tayong mga, di ba nga, itong factor, which is, yun nga, parang exponent siya. And kung ano yung prefix niya. So for example, when I say deciliter, so ibig sabihin 10 raised to negative 1 yung kanyang equivalent. And then the others. So diba dito, megawatts. Diba ba? Megawatts. So 10 raised to 6 yun. Etc. Okay, so now, since we already know our chemical measurements or you're familiar with our chemical measurements, we look into the foundation computation in quantitative chemistry. So in our third part of this module 1, kaunti lang na kung ano yung basic, no? Like for example, if you remember this, yung knowing kung ano yung atomic number, and knowing the symbol name, and the atomic mass, no? So, ito yung atomic number niya, ibig sabihin yung 6 for carbon, yung 6 is, it's the number of electrons, and also the number of protons niya, di ba? And then, yung ating atomic mass, which is usually nasa baba siya or nasa side, atomic mass, or we can call it atomic mass unit, or we can also call it relative atomic mass or RAM. So dito, ang term na gagamitin ko here in quantitative chemistry is relative atomic mass. So ang carbon nga natin, di ba, it is one atom lang. Ang atom ng carbon. So you find relative atomic mass, ito yon. And then, meron din tayong term na tinatawag na relative formula mass. So, yung relative formula mass naman siya, for example, I ask you to find the relative formula mass of NaCl. So, we have Na, sodium, and then Cl is chlorine. So, now you have to add yung RAM nito and yung RAM nito, yung atomic mass ni Na and atomic mass ni chlorine. So, in our case, we have 22.99 plus 35.5. 45. So you can compute on your own. I'll give you time. And you can also pause this video then. So the answer is 58.44. So that is your relative formula mass. Okay? So pag formula yung hinahanap, ibig sabihin these are elements put together. So for your example, another example, keep in mind na you have to secure, no? Paghahanap tayo ng relative formula of mass, kailangan mag-secure kayo ng copy ng periodic table para hindi kayo nanghuhula kung ano yung mga atomic mass, no? Kasi kung ano yung nakalagay sa standard natin na periodic table, yun din yung gagamitin ko to compute for this. And kailangan nyo talaga ng calculator, no? Okay, so ang ating, for example, number 1, the problem is find the relative formula mass of carbon dioxide, which is CO2. So now, kailangan muna nating i-break down, no? So meron tayong carbon. So hanapin nyo yung atomic mass ni carbon. We also have oxygen. Again, hanapin nyo yung atomic mass ni oxygen. So for carbon, 12. For oxygen, 16. And then for formula mass ng CO2, 12 plus 2 times 16. So, saan nanggaling tong 2, no? It comes from here. So, meron siyang, subscript, no? Meron siyang subscript. So, yung every time na makikita kayong ganyan, kailangan nyo siyang i-multiply. So, here, ipag-multiply nyo muna, yun na, sa loob ng equation, which is 2 times 16 is 32. And then we have 12. So 32 plus 12 is 44. Okay? So on your next example, relative formula mass of iron, FeOH, and then meron tayong subscript na 3. So dito, again, first step nyo, you break down ano yung nakikita nyong elements. We have iron, Fe. So hanapin nyo yung atomic mass niya, which is 56. And then we have oxygen, yung O, which is 16. And yung atomic mass. And then hydrogen is 1. Okay, so dito naman, tignan nyo no, kung ano nangyari. So yung 3 na subscript nyo, you have to multiply dun sa dalawa. So we have 3 times 16 and 3 times 1. And then you have to add this together. Plus yung 56 from iron. We have a relative formula mass of 107. Okay? So on your own, so this will be kind of your assignment. We have practice set number 1. So yan yung mga problems 1 to 5. And then we have practice set number 2. So kung mapapansin nyo sa practice set number 2, medyo mas complicated siya. No? So I'm not going to reiterate or discuss again kung paano yung math, kung paano yung gagawin yung math equations kasi you should already know this even by high school pa lang, no? Kung paano kayo nag-multiply, etc., nag-add. So again, ito yung practice number 1. Write it down. And then we have practice set number 2. Okay? So, write it down na. Kailangan meron kayong proof na nagawa nyo yung practice set 1 and set 2. So, sabi nga, again, just a reminder, I will manage my time. Kaya nyo mag-manage time. I can do it at my own pace. I can always ask for help. I can use other resources. So once you are done, for example, once you are done with practice set 1 and set 2, maraming mga sample problems sa internet na pwede nyo lang sagutan, na pwede nyo i-practice pa yung sarili nyo. So sabi nga, I will practice until I master it. Kasi nga, although hindi naman lahat magaling sa math, no? Even I, not good in math. However, I practiced it, kaya parang namamaster ko na din siya. So next meeting, we'll have practice set 1 and set 2 recitation. So ibig sabihin, magkakaroon tayo ng online meeting next week. And hopefully, I'll announce it naman kahit mga 1 day before, so you will be prepared. And if I were you, right now, gagawin ko na yung practice set 1 and set 2. And then next week, kahit mga the night before, you review kung paano nyo ginawa para hindi tayo nagkakapaan, no? And again nga, do it on your own kasi pag the more na pina-practice nyo sa sarili nyo na hindi kayo nag-cheat, hindi nyo kinokopya yung answer ng kalapit nyo, the more na mas naiintindihan nyo siya, no? So sabi nga dito, sorry, ano ko lang, Zoom. Okay, sabi nga dito, practicing on your own will help you retain the information more. So, mas na-absorb nyo yung skills nyo, yung knowledge nyo pag nagpa-practice kayo on your own. So, here you have to use a periodic table as your guide and write your answers in a piece of paper because you will be randomly called next meeting for a graded recitation. So, ibig sabihin, nag-expect ako na lahat kayo is present next meeting. Okay? And what else do we have here? Okay, so if you have any questions, again, I am open for consultation. You can message me directly or you can email me through josiela.serrano@lspu.edu.ph or through Messenger, JSSerrano. However, I would prefer if you would email me, no? Kasi mas professional yon for me. And syempre, minsan sa Messenger talaga, given the time frame yung schedule ko, ang hirap talagang sagutin lahat ng inquiries. But I will try my best. And we also have Google Classroom na pwede nyong gawin as a platform for you to ask questions or even ask your classmates din kung may tanong kayo or kung kailangan nyo ng tulong kung paano ba to, ganyan. Ayun, no? So, you can start a conversation through Google Classroom. And you also have our GC, pero kasi natatabunan nga yung chat, no? So, siguro kung maggawa kayo ng sarili yung GC, that would be much more convenient for both of us. So, again, I use this reference, Harris D. 2010, Quantitative Chemical Analysis. So, ito ay naka-upload na din sa ating Google Classroom, itong reference na to. So, you won't have any problems. Kung gusto nyo further reading about this, kung gusto nyo maging advanced, walang problema, no? Kasi this semester, it's all about pacing. Kailangan maka-keep up kayo as long as you get into the finish line. So, that is my last slide. So, thank you again. This is Module 1. And message me if you have any questions. So, thank you.